The shuttle's engines hummed softly as it glided through the thin atmosphere of the training station. Stars sparkled beyond the windows like scattered diamonds, and the vastness of space seemed endless. Inside the shuttle, cadets from dozens of alien species shifted nervously in their seats. Wings trembled, claws tapped against the metal floor, and tails flicked in anticipation. All of them were excited, scared, and proud to be here. But one figure stood out, not for his size, not for his alien features, not for any strange power, but for simply being human. Jace Harper adjusted the straps of his pack and took a deep breath. He was tall, though not exceptionally so by alien standards, and his dark hair fell across his forehead. His green eyes, however, held a quiet determination that set him apart. Humans were rare in this academy. Even rarer were humans who had survived anything remotely like what the other cadets had seen in simulations. The shuttle doors hissed open, and a wave of recycled station air washed over him. Cadets tumbled out, chattering in languages he could barely understand. Some had multiple limbs, some had shimmering scales, and some floated a few feet above the ground. Jace's boots clanked against the metal floor as he followed the crowd into the main hall. Immediately, the whispers started. "That's a human. I didn't think humans even made it here. He looks normal, too normal." Jace tried to ignore them. He had heard this before. Wherever humans went in the galaxy, there were doubts. Humans were thought fragile, short-lived, weak. Many alien species had dismissed them as incapable of survival in dangerous situations. Jace held his head high. He didn't need anyone to believe he could survive. He had already done that many times. The main hall was enormous. High ceilings arched like the bones of some ancient space beast, and a massive holographic map of the galaxy shimmered above the center platform. Instructors, imposing and precise, stood at the edges of the room. One of them, a tall reptilian officer with scales that glittered like polished stone, stepped forward. His eyes were sharp and cold, scanning each cadet. "Name?" the officer demanded in a deep, resonant voice that made even the wings in the room tremble. "Jace Harper, sir," he answered, voice steady. His heart beat faster, but not from fear. From resolve. The officer narrowed his eyes, clearly curious, then moved on to the next cadet. Jace let out a quiet breath. The first challenge was surviving the stares, the judgments, the whispers. He could do that. As the cadets were guided to their quarters, Jace noticed a group of alien cadets glaring at him from across the hall. A bulky, four-armed being snorted. "A human? What is he doing here?" Jace ignored the insult. He had learned long ago that fear and doubt were the weapons of those who underestimated him. They would laugh, they would whisper, they would challenge, but he had something they did not: endurance. Humans survived against impossible odds. Humans endured. In his room, Jace unpacked quickly. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate armor of the others, but it fit perfectly, like a second skin. He looked at his reflection in the small mirror. The face staring back at him was young but hardened. Eyes that had seen battles no one should survive were calm, patient, calculating. The hallways would be full of doubts, yes, but he had survived worse than doubts. That night, sleep came uneasy. The station creaked, groaned, and hummed. Outside the window, distant stars winked like eyes watching him. He thought of Earth, a tiny blue dot far behind him, and of the wars he had already fought to get this far. Memories of explosions, the chaos of battle, the roar of engines, and the screams of both fear and victory filled his mind. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that was exactly why he could surprise them. The next morning, the hall was alive with activity. Cadets trained, practiced maneuvers, and shouted orders in alien tongues. Jace moved among them, keeping his head down, listening, learning. He watched how the largest cadets lifted enormous weights effortlessly, how the fastest cadets darted across the floor like streaks of light. Yet despite his smaller frame, he felt ready. During orientation, the instructors emphasized one rule above all: survival. This academy is not for the weak. Only those who adapt, who learn, who fight with both mind and body will endure, the reptilian officer said. The words echoed in the hall, but Jace felt a spark ignite inside him. Survival had always been more than strength. It had been wit, instinct, heart, and humans had all three. By the end of the day, the cadets were exhausted, dripping with sweat, wings drooping, claws trembling. Jace, too, was tired but not defeated. For the first time, some of the whispers carried awe. Not all had given up on him yet. Some were watching, curious, and Jace knew. The first battle wasn't out in the stars or on a war-torn planet. The first battle was here, in this hall, among eyes that doubted him, among cadets who thought humans were weak. And he was determined to win, because humans didn't just survive, they endured. They adapted. They fought. And this human, standing among the galaxy's greatest cadets, was ready to show them all what that truly meant. The training hall was unusually quiet that morning. Cadets stood in rows, waiting for the instructor's announcement. Normally, the air buzzed with chatter, wings flapping and tails swishing, but today something felt different. A massive holographic screen flickered to life at the front. The cadets leaned forward, curious, as the lights dimmed. On the screen, scenes of chaos unfolded, an interstellar battle far away from the academy. Ships streaked through space, explosions lighting up the darkness. Aliens and humans fought side by side, but something caught every cadet's attention immediately. A human moved through the battlefield with uncanny precision. He was faster than he should have been, dodging blasts, finding cover, and striking back with calculated efficiency. Every shot, every move, every decision was perfect. His face was determined, fearless, almost legendary. The cadets gasped. Whispers started, quickly turning into shocked murmurs. "Is that a human?" one alien cadet asked, voice trembling. Jace felt a chill run down his spine. His heart pounded in his chest. The human on the screen wasn't just any soldier, he was him. Every movement, every action, every moment of courage replayed in vivid detail. The video had recorded a battle that most thought no one could survive. And here he was, facing hundreds of eyes that now saw him differently. The hall fell completely silent. Not a single cadet dared to speak. Some stared in disbelief, others in awe. Every alien who had whispered doubts about humans moments ago now looked at him with a mixture of fear and respect. One cadet, a towering species with 4 arms, muttered under his breath, "Impossible. Humans can't be that strong." Jace kept his face calm, but his mind raced. He had survived that battle, yes, but he had never imagined it would follow him here across the galaxy, onto the very academy where he had come to learn. He had wanted to be judged for who he was now, not for what he had done in the past. But the past had a way of catching up. The video continued, showing him leading other soldiers, strategizing under fire and saving lives when it seemed all hope was lost. His actions were decisive, fearless, almost heroic. The cadets could see it, the instructors could see it, and Jace felt the weight of every eye on him. The instructor, the reptilian officer from the first day, finally spoke. His voice was deep and controlled, but it carried the weight of authority. "Cadets, this human is one of the few who have survived the Varrock offensive. He faced impossible odds, and yet he prevailed. Take note of him. Learn from him. Underestimate him at your peril." Jace swallowed hard. Every nerve in his body was alive with tension. He wanted to disappear, to hide, to explain, but he knew it wouldn't matter. The video had spoken. It had revealed him as someone extraordinary, and there was no turning back. After the briefing, cadets were dismissed to their training schedules, but the whispers didn't stop. Everywhere he went, Jace felt eyes on him. Some cadets avoided him, unsure how to interact with someone they now considered almost a living legend. Others stared openly, measuring his every move. In the training yard, Talcren, the 4-armed cadet who had mocked him before, approached. His expression was unreadable, but the usual smirk was gone. You survived that?" he asked quietly. Jace nodded. "Yes, and I'll survive here too. That's what humans do." Talcren tilted his head, a mix of curiosity and wariness in his eyes. "I didn't think a human could lead, fight, endure." "You think too little of humans?" Jace replied softly. Not with anger, but with quiet pride. "We survive when others fail. That's all." The rest of the day was strange. Cadets who had ignored him before now gave him space, some even bowing slightly in respect. A gesture that didn't go unnoticed in Jace's mind. He felt the tension, the disbelief, and the admiration swirl around him, a storm of emotion that he had never encountered before. That night, as he lay in his bunk, Jace stared at the ceiling and thought of the Varrock offensive, the battle that had made him known across galaxies. The explosions, the screams, the desperation, it all came rushing back. Yet he realized something. Being known for past victories wasn't enough. Respect had to be earned here in the academy, every day, in every fight, in every decision. The next morning, the atmosphere had shifted. Cadets no longer whispered behind his back. They watched, studied, and sometimes even challenged him. Jace didn't fear it. He had faced impossible battles before. This was just another arena, a different kind of war. The human who had been underestimated, doubted, and dismissed was now a figure impossible to ignore. And Jace Harper, standing tall among the galaxy's finest cadets, knew that his journey had truly begun. Because humans didn't just survive history, they became it. The first week after the video was screened felt like walking through fire for Jace Harper. Everywhere he went, cadets whispered, stared with thinly veiled fear. Some admired him, some doubted him, and some avoided him entirely, unsure how to approach the human who had survived what no one else could. Even the instructors seemed to watch him differently. Every move, every decision, every misstep was under scrutiny. Jace felt the weight of it all pressing on his shoulders. He had survived battles that should have ended his life, but this was a new kind of trial. This was a test of patience, of perception, of courage without the familiar chaos of war. During morning training, Jace entered the sparring arena. The hall was enormous, filled with cadets of all shapes and sizes ready to prove their strength. He was paired with Talcren, the four-armed cadet who had mocked him on the first day. Talcren's claws gleamed under the harsh lights, and his muscular frame towered over Jace. "Let's see if the hero of the battle video is just luck," Talcren said, his voice low, dangerous, and filled with challenge. Jace did not flinch. Luck had nothing to do with survival. It was instinct, strategy, and sheer determination. He nodded once silently and readied himself. The fight began. Talcren lunged with blinding speed, claws slashing through the air. Jace barely dodged, rolling across the floor, his boots screeching against metal. He felt the sting of a near miss across his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he did not stop. Humans endured. Humans adapted. Humans fought. For several long minutes, Jace was on the defensive. He dodged, blocked, and countered, but every movement was tested to the limit. Talcren was strong, faster, and larger. Each strike could have ended the fight immediately. Yet Jace's mind worked faster than muscle alone could move. He studied Talcren's rhythm, noticed small tells in the alien's movements, and predicted attacks before they fully came. Then, Jace saw his chance. Talcren overextended in a heavy strike. Jace rolled under the swing, grabbed the alien's wrist, and used his own momentum to throw Talcren off balance. With a quick maneuver, he pinned the alien against the training wall. The hall went silent. Not one cadet breathed. Not one moved. Even the instructors froze, watching in disbelief. Talcren struggled, then froze, staring at Jace with wide, surprised eyes. You're not just lucky," Talcren muttered, his voice a mixture of respect and shock. Jace released him, standing tall but not triumphant. "Luck isn't what survives the impossible," he said quietly. "Humans endure." After the match, whispers followed him. Some cadets began to see him differently. Not just the human from the video, but someone real. Someone capable of surviving and winning even against impossible odds. Others, still doubtful, eyed him warily. But doubt had a strange way of settling in even within oneself. Later that night, Jace sat alone in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. He could still feel Talcren's strength, still feel the sting of near defeat. Was he truly ready for the Academy's challenges? Could he lead cadets who were larger, faster, and more experienced? The video had shown the galaxy a version of him that was brave, fearless, unstoppable. But that version had survived chaos. This version had to survive judgment, expectation, and scrutiny. He clenched his fists. Fear was natural. Doubt was natural. But giving in to them would be fatal. Humans survived because they faced fear, not because they ignored it. Humans fought not because they were unafraid, but because they refused to surrender. The next day, Jace joined the simulation exercises. Teams were paired for a complex tactical challenge, requiring strategy, quick thinking, and coordination. His squad included aliens who had once doubted him, their faces wary and cautious. As the exercise began, chaos erupted. Holographic enemies appeared. Simulated explosions rocked the floor and alarms blared. His squad hesitated, unsure how to act. Jace took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Split into 2 teams, he commanded, his voice calm but firm. "Cover the flanks. Watch each other's backs. Follow my lead. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, they obeyed. Jace's strategies, honed from battles long past, guided them. They avoided traps, covered blind spots, and neutralized threats efficiently. Cadets who had mocked him before began to follow his lead, trusting the human whose very existence challenged their assumptions. By the end of the exercise, the squad had completed the mission flawlessly. The instructors nodded, impressed, but more importantly, the cadets around him began to whisper, not in fear or doubt, but in admiration. Jace had survived the impossible again, not in battle against aliens or explosions, but against expectation, prejudice, and disbelief. Later, Talcrin approached him once more. "I misjudged you," he said simply. "You're different, stronger than I thought, not just in body but in mind." Jace smiled faintly, a mix of relief and quiet pride. "It's not strength alone," he said softly. "It's endurance. Humans endure." That night, as Jace looked out the window at the endless stars, he realized something vital. The Academy would test him in ways no battle ever could. But he had already survived impossible odds before. The greatest weapon he had was not size, strength, or speed. It was his heart, his mind, and his refusal to surrender. And with that thought, Jace Harper knew he was ready to face whatever the galaxy would throw at him next. Days passed, and the Academy began to feel less like a battlefield and more like a proving ground for Jace Harper. The whispers followed him, yes, but now they were mixed with cautious admiration. Cadets no longer dismissed him outright. They watched his every move, curious, measuring, learning. Some were still wary, but many began to respect the human who had survived what no one thought possible. One morning, during combat drills, Jace noticed Talcrin waiting at the edge of the arena. The four-armed cadet's usual smirk was gone. Instead, his eyes held something different: curiosity, respect, and maybe even a hint of apology. "You led your squad well yesterday," Talcrin said as Jace approached. "I underestimated you." Jace tilted his head slightly, not offended. "I'm not here to prove myself to anyone but me," he replied calmly. "But I'll help those willing to learn." Talcrin nodded slowly. "Then teach me." It was an unusual request. Talcrin, the strongest cadet in his class, had rarely admitted he needed guidance. But Jace saw the chance to build a bond, not through fear or intimidation, but through respect and trust. Over the next few weeks, Jace spent more time training with Talcrin and his squad. They ran simulations, sparred together, and analyzed strategies from old battles. Slowly, a quiet camaraderie developed. The very same cadets who had whispered doubts now leaned on him for guidance. And Jace, for the first time in months, felt something he hadn't expected: a sense of belonging. The instructors noticed the change too. One day, the veteran officer, a grizzled alien with battle scars running down his scales, called Jace aside. "You have a spark," he said quietly, voice gravelly. "A spark most soldiers never find. Do not let them scare you. Humans are underestimated for a reason. They survive when others fail." Jace nodded, humbled but not surprised. He had always known that humans endured where others faltered. It was in his blood, in his instincts, in the countless battles he had survived. That evening, Jace and Talcrin were on the observation deck, watching the stars stretch across the endless void. Talcrin was silent for a long time, then finally spoke. "Why do humans fight like this?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward the horizon as if he meant the galaxy itself. Jace smiled faintly. "We fight because we have to," he said simply. "Not because we want glory or recognition or power. We fight because giving up is not an option. Humans endure because we must, because survival is in our nature." Talcrin considered this in silence. Then he nodded. "I see, and that makes you stronger than anyone here." Strength. It was a word Jace had heard a lot in the Academy, usually measured in muscle mass, weapon skill, or raw speed. But true strength, he realized, was something else. It was endurance, courage, and the ability to inspire others. And slowly, he was beginning to inspire. Not just the cadets, but even the instructors. The bond with Talcrin began to spread. Other cadets approached him for advice, for strategies, or simply to spar with someone who could teach them not just how to fight, but how to survive. And through it all, Jace remained calm, patient, and observant. He never boasted. He never demanded respect. He earned it quietly, day by day. One afternoon, during a group tactical exercise, A situation arose that could have ended in disaster. Cadets panicked, unsure how to navigate a simulated ambush. Jace stepped forward, assessing the chaos, reading patterns, predicting the enemy's moves. With clear commands, he guided his team, positioning them strategically, covering weaknesses, and exploiting opportunities. By the time the simulation ended, every instructor was nodding in approval, some even murmuring in amazement. The cadets who had once doubted him now looked at him as a leader, a strategist, and a comrade. Later, Talcran approached him again. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," he said quietly. "Not just a human, a leader, a real one." Jace looked out over the training field, the sunlight glinting off alien armor, reflecting in eyes filled with newfound respect. "It's not about being human," he said softly. "It's about refusing to give up, about surviving, learning, and helping others survive too. That is what matters." And in that moment, Jace understood something vital. Being human was not a weakness here. It was a strength that others could learn from, a spark that could ignite courage in those who had once doubted him. The academy no longer felt like a place of judgment or fear. It felt like a place where bonds could be forged, where courage could inspire, and where a human, against all odds, could change the way an entire generation of cadets thought about strength, leadership, and survival. For Jace Harper, the journey had only begun. But with allies like Talcran and the quiet respect of those who had once doubted him, he knew he could face anything the Academy or the galaxy threw his way. The Academy's final trial was announced with a solemn hush. Cadets gathered in the central hall, anticipation and tension thick in the air. This was no ordinary exercise. This was a full-scale simulated planetary assault, designed to test not just strength but strategy, courage, and teamwork. It was legendary for breaking cadets, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Many had failed before. Many would fail again. Jace Harper listened to the instructions carefully. His squad included Talcran and the cadets who had slowly come to respect him. Some still harbored doubt, but now it was tempered with curiosity, even trust. The mission was simple in words but impossible in execution. Reclaim a captured planetary base, facing traps, ambushes, and enemies designed to test every skill a cadet possessed. The simulation began. Explosions rocked the training ground, alarms blared, and holographic enemies swarmed from every angle. Dust, smoke, and flashing lights made the scene chaotic, disorienting. Cadets hesitated, unsure where to go or what to do. Jace took a deep breath, steadying his mind. This was the moment he had been preparing for, not just to survive, but to lead. He stepped forward, voice calm, firm, and clear. "Split into 2 teams," he commanded. "Talcran, you cover the right flank. Lyra, take the left. Follow my lead. Watch each other's backs. Don't hesitate." A pause. Then slowly, the cadets moved. The first wave of enemies came fast and relentless. Cadets scattered in panic, some falling in simulated strikes. But Jace remained focused, predicting every move, calculating every angle. Using quick maneuvers and sharp commands, he directed his squad like a master strategist. "Hold position here. Lyra, flank them from above. Talcran, cover the rear." His words cut through the chaos, sharp and precise. Cadets who had doubted him now followed his instructions without hesitation. They moved like a single unit, each action synchronized, each decision instinctive. The impossible was becoming possible under Jace's guidance. Then a trap sprung. Simulated energy barriers and collapsing floors threatened to isolate his team. Cadets froze, panic in their eyes. Jace did not. He ran toward the hazard, pulling a struggling cadet to safety, guiding the others with calm precision. "You survive by trusting each other," he shouted. "Move together, fight together." One by one, the cadets regained their confidence, moving with purpose. Jace led the charge into the enemy stronghold, anticipating ambushes, countering traps, and turning potential disaster into advantage. His human ingenuity and unyielding courage transformed chaos into order. By the end of the trial, the team had reclaimed the base flawlessly. The hall went silent at first, then slowly erupted into applause. Not just from the instructors, but from the cadets themselves, many of whom had once doubted him, now cheering for the human who had led them to victory. The lead instructor stepped forward, scales gleaming, eyes intense. "Cadet Harper," he said, voice echoing across the hall. "You have done what few could. You have turned chaos into strategy, fear into courage, doubt into triumph. You have proven that strength is not measured by size or species, but by will, intelligence, and perseverance. Jace felt a wave of relief and pride wash over him. But deeper than pride, there was gratitude. Gratitude for his team, for Talcren who had trusted him, and for every cadet who had followed despite uncertainty. He realized that leadership was not about being strongest. It was about inspiring others to find strength they didn't know they had. Talcren approached him after the trial, face serious but eyes softened. "You're not just a human, Jace. You're a leader. Someone I would follow anywhere." Jace shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "It's not just me," he said quietly. "We did it together. Humans survive, but humans aren't meant to survive alone." Later, Jace stood outside the simulation hall looking at the stars stretching endlessly across the horizon. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers he could not yet imagine. But after this trial, after leading cadets through chaos and fear, he knew he could face whatever came next. Because humans didn't just survive, they endured. They adapted. They led when others faltered. And one human, small by comparison to most, had just reminded the Academy what it truly meant to be strong. That night, the Academy was quiet. Cadets who had doubted him before now whispered with respect. Talcren, once a rival, had become a friend. And Jace Harper, standing under the endless sky, felt something he had never felt before: belonging. The ultimate trial was over. But Jace knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy awaited, full of battles, challenges, and opportunities. And one thing was certain: they would never underestimate a human again. The next morning, the Academy was unusually quiet. Cadets moved through the halls with a new awareness. The whispers from days before were gone, replaced with glances of respect and curiosity. Jace Harper walked among them, not arrogant, not boastful, just steady, calm, and focused. The events of the ultimate trial had changed everything. He was summoned to the central hall where instructors gathered in formal formation. The massive doors opened with a hiss, and every cadet turned to look. Silence fell immediately. Some faces reflected awe, some disbelief, and others the recognition of a human who had proven himself far beyond what anyone had imagined. The lead instructor, his scales gleaming in the soft light, stepped forward. "Cadets," he began, his voice deep and commanding. "Today we recognize one who has not only survived the impossible, but has also led with courage, intelligence, and unwavering resolve." Every eye turned to Jace. His heart pounded, not from fear but from the gravity of the moment. He had never sought fame or recognition. His goal had always been survival and proving, to himself at least, that humans could endure anywhere. Yet now the entire Academy was watching him, and the weight of their eyes felt heavier than any battle he had ever fought. "Human Cadet Jace Harper," the instructor continued, "you have shown us all what it means to survive, to lead, and to inspire. Strength is not measured in size or speed. It is measured in courage, endurance, and the ability to bring out the best in those around you. You embody the ideals this Academy strives to instill in every cadet." A hush fell across the hall. Cadets who had once doubted him now looked at him with admiration. Some bowed slightly, others nodded. Even Talcren, standing beside him, had a small smile, eyes reflecting respect that words could not capture. Jace stepped forward, feeling a mix of humility and quiet pride. He looked around at his squad, at the cadets who had once questioned him, and he realized something profound. Recognition was not just for him. It was for everyone who had trusted him, who had followed his lead, and who had fought alongside him through fear and chaos. "Thank you," he said simply, voice steady but heartfelt. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. We survive together, we fight together, and we rise together. That is what being human and being a cadet truly means." The hall erupted in applause. It wasn't loud or chaotic, but it was sincere, full of respect and acknowledgement. Cadets who had once whispered doubts now approached him, some extending hands in friendship, others simply nodding in quiet admiration. That evening, Jace sat on the observation deck with Talcren and a few other cadets. The stars stretched endlessly before them, brilliant and infinite, reflecting the possibilities that lay ahead. "You've changed everything here," Talcren said quietly, almost in awe. "Cadets who doubted humans now study them, try to learn from them. They see strength differently now." Jace smiled faintly. "Humans have always survived," he said softly. "Others just need to see it to believe it. That's all." Lyra, a cadet who had initially been skeptical, leaned back and looked at him. "It's not just that," she said. "You've shown us courage, strategy, and patience. You've made us better. I never thought a human could do this," Jace chuckled lightly. "We're capable of more than anyone expects. That's the point. You adapt, you endure, and you never give up. That's how we survive." News of Jace's recognition spread quickly through the academy. By the next week, he was no longer just the human cadet. He had become a symbol, a standard, an example of what could be achieved with determination, heart, and resilience. Cadets came to him for advice, for guidance, and sometimes simply for reassurance. Even instructors sought his perspective during strategy discussions. The same species that had once dismissed humans now relied on Jace's insight, often asking him for ideas on tactics, simulations, and survival strategies. He had become more than a cadet. He had become a teacher, a leader, and a symbol of hope. That night, Jace looked out over the academy from his quarters. The lights of the training grounds shimmered below, alien shapes moving in disciplined patterns. He thought of the battles he had survived, the doubts he had faced, and the friendships he had forged. A quiet sense of satisfaction settled over him. He had proven that humans were not fragile, not weak, and not limited by species assumptions. But more importantly, he had proven something to himself, that courage, endurance, and heart mattered more than size, speed, or strength. And for the first time in a long time, Jace Harper felt truly at home, not just in the academy but among beings who had once doubted him. Tomorrow, new challenges would come. Simulations, training, perhaps real battles in distant systems. But Jace Harper knew he was ready. He had earned his place. He had earned respect. He had earned the right to be counted among the greatest cadets of the galaxy. Because humans didn't just survive, they inspired. And one human, standing quietly under the endless stars, had inspired an entire academy to see strength differently, to see courage differently, and to see that determination could overcome any expectation. The academy's training grounds were quiet that morning, but the air was thick with anticipation. New cadets arrived from all corners of the galaxy, bright-eyed and full of hope, unaware of the legends that walked these halls. And among them, Jace Harper moved with quiet confidence. He had changed the way this place thought about strength, leadership, and survival, but he carried no prideful airs. His heart remained grounded, focused on what came next. It had been months since the video had revealed his past heroics, since he had faced the whispers, the doubts, and the ultimate trial. Now cadets who once scoffed at the idea of a human had come to trust him, even look up to him. Talcrin stood at his side, Lyra and others following quietly. They had learned from him, fought alongside him, and now shared a bond forged in endurance, trust, and respect. As the new cadets arrived, some paused when they saw him. Whispers spread quickly, curiosity and awe replacing fear and doubt. Jace caught the gaze of one nervous alien cadet and offered a calm, encouraging nod. It was a small gesture, but it carried meaning. Humans were not to be underestimated. Courage could come in any form. Strength could be measured in more than muscle and speed, and determination could change the hearts of those around you. Later, in the main hall, instructors gathered for a formal ceremony. Today, Jace would be recognized not just for surviving or leading, but for inspiring a generation of cadets. The lead instructor stepped forward, his voice carrying across the hall like a command and a blessing all at once. "Cadets of the Academy," he said, "today we honor one who has changed the very way we think about strength. Human cadet Jace Harper has proven that courage, strategy, and endurance can surpass expectations, defy prejudice, and inspire others to greatness. His actions have not only earned him respect, they have earned him a legacy." The hall fell silent, each cadet absorbing the weight of the words. Jace felt the familiar rush of emotion, not pride, not arrogance, but a deep, quiet fulfillment. This was the moment he had never sought, yet it was the moment he had earned through every battle, every challenge, every doubt he had faced. He looked around at the cadets who had trained with him, who had doubted him, who had come to respect him. Talcrin, Lyra, and the others stood tall beside him, faces reflecting admiration, trust, and gratitude. Jace realized then that true strength was not only surviving or fighting, it was lifting others up, showing them what they could achieve, even when they thought it impossible. "Being human," he said softly when he was finally given the chance to speak, doesn't mean we are weak. It doesn't mean we are fragile. We endure, we adapt, and we fight. Not because we are perfect, but because we refuse to give up. And when we fight together, when we inspire each other, we can overcome anything. The cadets erupted in applause, some cheering, some nodding in solemn respect. The words weren't just heard, they were felt. Humans, Jace realized, had a power that was rarely recognized. The power to endure, to inspire, and to unite others in ways no raw strength could match. That night, Jace stood on the observation deck with Tal Kren and a few of his closest cadets. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, stars glittering like scattered fire across the black canvas of space. "Do you ever get tired of proving humans can do this?" Lyra asked quietly, her voice almost lost in the hum of the station. Jace shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "No," he said. "It's not about proving it. It's about showing that courage and determination matter more than size, species, or expectations. Humans survive, and if we can show others how, they can survive too. That's the legacy I hope to leave." Tal Kren nodded, a rare softness in his eyes. "You've already done it," he said. "We've seen it, learned it, and now we believe it. You're not just a human, you're a symbol, a standard. Someone will remember." Jace looked at the stars, thinking of Earth, of all the battles he had survived, and of the journey that had brought him here. He thought of the cadets he had trained with, the friendships forged in fire, and the doubts he had turned into respect. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly at peace. He had earned his place, not just as a cadet, but as a human who reminded the galaxy what endurance and courage could achieve. And somewhere deep inside, he smiled quietly to himself. The room may have fallen silent the day the battle video played, but the echoes of that courage had spread farther than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again. Because one human, small by comparison to most, had endured impossible odds, inspired a generation, and left a legacy that would shine brighter than any star. Jace Harper turned from the observation deck, stepping back into the Academy's halls. The future awaited, full of battles, challenges, and discoveries. But he was ready. He always had been. Humans survived, humans endured, and humans, sometimes quietly, sometimes fiercely, changed the galaxy forever. And in that moment, Jace Harper knew the truth that had guided him through every trial. It wasn't size, speed, or raw power that defined a warrior. It was heart. It was courage. It was the refusal to surrender, and that made him unstoppable.